So today I want to film a video and talk about what truly is money. And it's a reply to Pettifor as well in her video with the interview she did with Novara Media with Sarkar. So in the video, Pettifor, she describes money as a promise to pay, which is what it says on the banknotes that we all use, because typically we don't really read those things. But if you look somewhere, in whichever country you are, you'll see that it says someone on your note, on your banknote, that it's just a promise to pay. Now, here's a problem. And Pettifor doesn't really go beyond that. She does advocate that, okay, if, for example, we have pension funds that are investing on the stock market, that probably they should be doing something more useful. But she never really, and this is a problem that I see with most economists out there, they never really go into the details of what we should be doing. When you make things that vague, it doesn't really provoke some kind of intellectual research, it doesn't really trigger a much more fundamental thinking about what we should be doing. And what is kind of missing there is that money really is more than a promise to pay. It's a vector of activity. That's really what we should be doing, educating people about. Money is there to create activity. It's there to make sure that things happen in an economy. When, for example, you say, okay, I'm going to give you this £10 note, which is a promise to pay, to your butcher. You've generated activity because your butcher, he's going and maybe butchered the cow, and then he's going to give you that cow. I mean, before the cow was butchered, that cow probably was reared, and it took a lot of work, right? So activity is generated, and the fiat money system, banknotes, or whatever means of exchange that we use within an economy, that's really just there to generate some kind of activity, and ideally useful activity. Speculative activity, like Anne Pettifor rightly says, on the stock market, and that's not useful. Now, once we understand money as a vector of activity, we can then go back to pensions. And what should we do with our pensions? Well, we should be generating some kind of activity. And we also need to fundamentally explain, I've done that in a previous video, but we need to explain what pensions are. A pension is not, and I wish Anne Pettifor had done that, because she didn't do that. She didn't explain really what pension is. Fundamentally, a pension is not the case that you save money today and then tomorrow you're going to get more money in your bank account to help you grow longer. That's absolutely not what a pension is. A pension is an engagement by today's generation to use the money that they have today to invest that money wisely in productive assets in such a way that the next generation can then use those assets to produce more goods, so that there's enough goods for everybody, even when the old generation can work, meaning, ergo, that they would be taken care of. That's what a pension is. You can think of a pension as effectively saying, we are going to invest in research and development and infrastructure in such a way that whatever comes out of that investment, it allows us to produce more, to become more productive. So in effect, in pensions, the way pensions were kind of envisioned a long time ago, it's not a new thing. I mean, lots of communities, even back in the Middle Ages, used to get together and say, okay, we're going to get together, build a house, a castle, a moat, so that tomorrow we can be secure. We're going to invest in fields, etc. In this field, and these crops are going to generate enough for everybody and the next generation. And the next generation comes about and then they tend to do the same thing. That's really how things have functioned for a very long time. It just has kind of been lost. But pension is really there for people to put their money together and invest in assets, productive assets, and productive endeavors, so that tomorrow, when they can no longer work, you can use those productive assets and whatever productive has come out fruitfully out of those investments to then produce enough for absolutely everybody. Okay, cater for everybody. That's what a pension is. But here's the thing: I keep saying that you have to produce. You need to use that money to do things, to perform some kind of activity. You can't just put it on the stock market. And that's kind of what's missing here from Anne Pettifor. She should have explained that better. And yeah, so I did want to kind of shed light on this, but it does mean that we need to think about money. This is actually how we then need to inform our politics, which is to say, okay, really we should be investing more into productive things, and that doesn't generate inflation. We see it in China. China invests a lot in their productive assets, but that doesn't generate inflation. Part of the reason it doesn't generate inflation is because the investment is so curtailed, it's so confined, constrained, restricted to a few sectors. For example, when you invest billions into semiconductor manufacturing, that money is just going to go to a few thousand people, to a few sectors, some metallurgical company, some electronic company. It's not going to really percolate that much into the real economy. So when you invest in productive assets, you don't actually start generating any kind of inflation. But it is good because then once you see the return, for example, China produces a lot of energy because they've invested a lot in that. They produce a lot of metal because they've invested in a lot of productive assets. But it means that everything's cheap, which is great. It's a great thing. So that's really how we should be informing our politics. And I will try and talk more about that in another video because I've done that in the past. So look at my other videos. But yeah, so this is a reply to Anne Pettifor on Novara Media and trying to explain a bit more what money really is and obviously what pensions also are and what we should be doing with them. Thank you.